Hello guys, you're welcome to our chemistry class today. In today's video, we are looking at solubility rule. Okay, now a good knowledge of this rule is very important because it will help you to identify compound substances that are soluble in water. Okay, so in some exam, you will see question like which of the following salts or compound is soluble in water. So you have this option. Can you identify the compound that is soluble in water? So this is where the rules of solubility comes in. Okay. So in this video, I'll be giving you a trick, a mnemonic that you can use to memorize your solubility rule and never forget them again. Okay. Now let's look at the rule. Number one, we have that all compounds of group 1 elements are soluble in water without exception. Okay, group 1 elements are elements like sodium, we have potassium, we have lithium. Okay, all these are group 1 elements. So when you have a compound or a salt with any of these elements, it implies that such a compound is soluble in water. Okay, like sodium chloride. Because we have sodium here, it implies that this sodium is soluble in water. Okay, so when you have a compound with sodium, potassium, or lithium, or any other group 1 element, it implies such a compound is soluble in water. Okay, then we don't have exception for that. So all compounds of group 1 elements are soluble in water. Then number 2, we have all ammonium compounds. So when you have a compound with ammonium ion, they are all soluble in water without exception. Okay. Then rule number 3, we have all nitrates. All nitrates, that is a compound or a salt with NO3. So NO3. So when you have a compound with this ion, they are all soluble in water without exception. So from this number 1, 1, 2, 3, they are without exception. There is no exception. So all their compounds are soluble in water. Then let's look at number 4, and that is where my mnemonic, my trick will come in. Okay, we have all chlorides, that is compounds of chlorine, salts of chlorine, all chlorides are soluble. All chlorides are soluble, except those of silver, okay, lead, okay, let's say silver, mercury, and lead. Okay, look at it here. All compounds of chlorides, all chlorides ion are soluble except those of silver, mercury, and lead. You can use the word similar to remember this. That is, when you see a compound with chlorine, it must be soluble, except when you have the compound with either silver, mercury, or lead. Okay, so all other compounds of fluorine are soluble. So meaning that silver chloride is insoluble in water. So any chloride of these elements are insoluble. Okay. Okay, you can use this. You can use MLS. That is medical laboratory science. That is mercury, lead, and silver. So all compounds of chlorine are soluble except those of mercury, lead, and silver. Okay, that is for that. Then let's go to rule number 5. All sulfates, that is sulfates compound with SO4 ion. So all sulfates are soluble. They are all soluble except those of calcium, lead, and barium. Okay, so all sulfate compounds are soluble except those of calcium, lead, and barium. Meaning that When you see a compound with SO4, a salt with SO4, they are all soluble, except when you have it with calcium, that is calcium tetraoxosulfate 6, this is insoluble. Okay, so when you have a sulfate ion with calcium or lead or barium, then those ones are insoluble in water. But every other compound of sulfate are soluble. Okay, and let's look at rule number 6. So this is my trick here. You can see. So we have caliber, okay, calcium, lead, and barium. So all compound of sulfate are soluble except those of caliber. Okay. So for chlorine, that is chloride ion, we have similar, okay, or MLS. All chloride are soluble except MLS, medical laboratory science. Okay. Then let's go to rule number 6. We have all triisocarbonates, and sulfites, all triisocarbonate, that is CO3 ion, and sulfites ion, that is SO3. These ones are insoluble. They are insoluble except those of group 1 elements. Except those of group 1 element. Okay. Yeah. So all triisocarbonates are insoluble. They are insoluble. They cannot dissolve in water except those of group 1 elements. Okay. Then all sulfides, all sulfides, all sulfides are insoluble except those of group 1 elements, calcium, magnesium, barium, and ammonium. Okay, all sulfide are insoluble except this. Okay, so and that is for the solubility rule. Now you can look at this question. You can identify with what we have here, with all this rule here, you can identify which of these salts that is insoluble. Okay, that is soluble. Okay, the question say which of the following salt is soluble in water. Okay, let's look at the option one after the other. Okay, here we have the first one as calcium triisocarbonate. Okay, now when you see triisocarbonate ion, all triisocarbonate ion, look at it here, all triisocarbonate ion are insoluble, okay, except those of group 1. Now looking at the element here, this is not a group 1 element, so triisocarbonate ion, this is insoluble. Okay, let's look at the option B. The second option, we have lead tetraoxosulfate. Now this compound, is it soluble? Okay, let's look at the solubility rule for sulfates. For sulfates, all sulfates ion, all sulfate salts are soluble except those of what? Caliber. Except those of caliber. This is calcium, lead, and barium. So lead, this is our lead here. So lead is one of the insoluble sulfates. So this is insoluble. Okay. Then silver 2 chloride. So here, is it soluble or not? Of course, it is insoluble because all chlorides, you can see all chlorides are soluble except the chloride of silver. You can see this is a chloride of silver. So this is insoluble. Okay, let's look at the last option. Option D, we have sodium triisocarbonate. Is it soluble or not? Of course, it is soluble. This is the correct answer. It is soluble because all triisocarbonates are insoluble except those of group 1. And sodium here is in group 1. It's a group 1 element. So this is soluble. Okay.